In church worlds, circles, similar to nonprofits and corporate circles, there's a tendency that we've inherited, and I got it whether I was in graduate school, I get it in continuing education classes, and it's a small bother. It's when teachers, pastors, CEOs, consultants start talking about these broad topics, these big words, and they use ethereal language, and they wax poetic about mission statements, vision statements. Like, I get it. Like, and it can be helpful to narrow down what it is you're about into a clear, concise statement. Totally get it. I'm on board. I'm with you. The class in seminary I took was called Religious Leadership. Please. It was so ethereal. It was so heady. And that can be inspiring. But I really want on-the-ground understanding of what does leadership mean. I don't believe Jesus Christ would ever say, I need to work on my leadership skills. I just don't picture Jesus saying that. And at the same time, I've also been in kind of the other end of the spectrum when you're trying to plant and grow a church where it gets so micro, like granular instruction. When you meet someone, you shake them firmly, eye contact. Hold it for a couple of seconds. If you've got another hand, put it on their elbow. That establishes intimacy. Which, by the way, when you get that granular, that is completely culturally absorbed, because there's a whole big chunk of the world that eye contact isn't just a faux pas. That's reserved for like family. And for me to be as presumptuous as to think you and I deserve eye contact, well, come on now. So it's got to be a little bit in the middle. And I'm not saying I'm about to write a leadership book. Sorry, I'm not going to write a book on leadership. But I do have some thoughts about, like, when Jesus says, because Jesus, like, that's my example. That's who I want to be like. Do I need to be a great leader? I just want to be more like Jesus, right? And Jesus says, you want to be great? You want to be the greatest disciple? You want to follow me more closely? Jesus gives a metaphor of being a servant. Okay, Jesus, how do I do that? How do I serve better? Because I can easily turn servanthood into the new word like leadership. So I just put down a couple of things because it's the 4th of July weekend, and I was like, I got some ideas about this. Because if it's leadership or servanthood, following Jesus, I need something that can talk to being a servant in your family, at your workplace, at your for the church, as a Christian, as a neighbor. This isn't about growing a building. This is about following Jesus. I think one of the first things to do is to identify who is the us. As a worshiping community, we gather on Sunday mornings. We have a ritual, we have a routine, we have a schedule. Upon a time that we will all show up in the same room or online, and we will direct our attention and our love in the same direction, towards that inner ground of being that brought us all here. It's an easy way to establish an us as a church. What's the us in your family? How does someone join your family? Now you can say the easy part, you're born into it, or you're married into it. That can be it. Is there a person in your family who is the center of gravity? You know your role in that family because that person absorbs all of the oxygen and you are in their orbit. Sometimes that can be abusive. Sometimes it's out of reverence. My wife, her grandmother is 104. We still try to get together as often as we can, because how often do you get to speak to someone who's 104? And you know, this is totally off topic. I don't know if I have time for this. I went and saw her last week, brought my kids. They did a puzzle together, which is amazing. And afterwards, she had like lunch. We left, and she like was trying to leave, and she couldn't get the door open. She slipped, she fell. She took a chunk out of the wall with her head. Sad. And when we got the phone call, everyone went, "This is it." She's fine. Still with it. There's a chunk missing from the wall. That's gravity, my friends. I want to be around Marilyn Johnson as much as I can. Why? Because I'm in her orbit. She is part of my family. Do you have shared destiny, a common good? My advice to every marriage counseling, I don't do a lot of just actual marriage counseling, but pre-marriage counseling. We're usually pretty good in modern era of saying, you're not two halves of one, you are two ones coming together to make a bond. But I also encourage that you are an us. And the quickest way to become an when you start referring to your partner's wins as your wins, their losses as something that grieves you, the faster that happens as a partnership, the better. I think one of the hardest things about living in the world that we do is we are so quick to create thems. That's what's made this 4th of July really hard. I've wanted to celebrate, but I feel like there's so many parts of this country that are pointing me as a them, let alone so many people I love and I care about. And that can be the hard part. And then there's the small bits. If you're a leader in this church, you've heard me refer to this metaphor. When you join Spirit of Hope, I usually only have one lesson in membership classes, and that is that you take ownership of Spirit of Hope. You are an extension of it. You do not, I want to change every member's here's language. When they say, you know, church really should, or Spirit of Hope really should, or the staff really should, and start saying we. The faster you say we, because that's the identifying marker. You are Spirit of Hope. Do you remember that 30-year-old movie where Woody grabs Buzz and yells, "You are a toy"? I want to grab everybody and say, you are the church. You are Spirit of Hope. So identifying in us, the quickest way that you foster that you build an us without creating a them. Number 2, attention. The people that you love, the people in your us, the people that you're trying to welcome into the us, the people that you were trying to bring into the family, how do you give them attention? A lot of my day, like working, my attention is like a dial. I have some attention over here, some attention over here. Something will happen, and if you're a leader here, you've probably gotten an email from me that's one sentence long and half the words are misspelled. Why? Because I'm talking to Jerry and I'm writing an email. Because if I don't do it in the moment, I am going to forget, and I'm trying to carry on the conversation as such. Meanwhile, or I'm listening to a song while I'm driving and I'm sending a voice text to Jerry, right? This will happen all the time. This isn't what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is when I am with my children, my phone is away from me. While I can multitask, it's all part of being human. When I'm with somebody I want to be with, my attention is either on or off. Probably in the course of today, in this worship service, you will at one point stop listening to me because you will think, what's for lunch? And if you haven't yet, you're thinking of it now. And if you chose tacos, you won. In this world, I don't know if it was always like this, but it is pretty clear to me that attention is the most valuable resource. It is what social media, politics, the world wants from you, and who you give it to will establish an us. So how do you do that? Just two quick things, just as a reminder. Listen loudly. My buddy Josh, I mean, you talk to him, every friend of his might as well be in an African-American church, because whenever you start talking to him, it's yep, yes, say more, yes. He's listening loudly. He's not just nodding and eye contacting. It's, oh yeah, very much so. You feel great talking to him. Why? Because you're trying to cue up that person that you are engaged with them. And this is the other practice I always want to do, is ask more questions. If you can ask more questions, just furthering detail. If you've known me for 20 seconds, I've told you a story, right? I love to tell stories, but I am trying better. This is one of these, I'm practicing what I'm preaching. I am trying to get better about turning other people into storytellers with the questions I ask. As much as I love to tell stories, if I want to really serve you, I need to get you to tell me more stories. Okay. Identifying us, attention. Totally forgot. I have points to the scripture passage with all of these, by the way. How Jesus identifies in us. The attention is that he paid attention to the argument. 3, celebrate. Jesus, in all of the scriptures, he's got food and joy. And it seems to be abounding. He is at the Last Supper. He knows he's on his way to the cross. And still, he is holding bread and cup and saying blessings and eat and drink. This is, without celebration, those of us who are fighting for justice, those of us who are trying to push the universe towards a more inclusive and wonderful age that point out, if we don't celebrate the wins, we will burn out. The dark spaces will close in because there's just not enough fuel in the tank. And I can't get over this. One bit about celebration. Taking the joy in the moments, which is usually the heart of celebration is gratitude. You want to be grateful, to point out the small things each and every day. And I've warned you, try to establish an us without creating a them. My people, the German people, named a phrase, a human trait, something that will happen, that does happen, that I will caution against. Quick story. One of my roommates in seminary was not going to be a pastor. He was a church historian. And I wouldn't call him a villain, but people have. Not one of his villainous personifications was an undying, unrelenting, over-the-top, complete adoration of all sports teams from Ohio. And because of this adoration, this unrelenting and pure everything that isn't Ohio sports is just way down here. Woke me up from a nap to go, OH. Stop it, Colin. So during those years, I couldn't tell you what year, Ohio sports teams had a really great time coming in second, which was just the gift that kept giving. Why? Because I could watch my roommates suffer. Yes. Lose by just the hair or just completely devastated. You know what that feeling is called? You think about that. Think of the time that you took just the greatest pleasure in watching your enemy. Wait, you're from Minnesota. You don't have enemies. Those interesting people suffer. And you're like, ha-ha, I win. The German people call that Schadenfreude. It's human. You have it. Do not live in that. Do not look for that. Anger and rage, these are human emotions. You cannot live in them. A church should never practice them. It is not a way that will grow a community of love. So, what was going to be 4 on my little list of like trying to be a great servant is teaching you how to deal with criticism. But I'm chickening out. No, I'm kidding. I wanted to do a whole sermon on it, and I'm going to some other point. But my last one, this is probably the most basic and simple for serving other people. You want to grow your leadership skills. You want to follow Jesus more? Show up for people. I mean, it's being there. You will show up imperfectly. You won't be prepared. You didn't write the card. You didn't get the gift. No one is going to mind. Show up imperfectly. I'm not dressed appropriately. Show up for people. That is vastly more important than leaving a hole where you should be. So, you show up for people. You celebrate wins. You give them attention. You're aware of them. And through these things you practice, you develop the team, gathered. I don't know if that will make you a great leader or business owner or point in the family. But I think if you grow in these skills of showing up and celebrating and attention and identifying the us and making that clear that other people, make it clear that the people in your life are on your team. If you do these things, I don't know if you'll be a great leader. Don't know if you'll be a great business owner. But I think if I did those things, I'd be more like Jesus. I think that's what it's about. Amen.